You're up.
John, alcoholic. And thank you, Steve. And thanks for all the years you've been my sponsor. And Nancy, too, because sometimes it takes Steve and Nancy. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity to share my story in front of my buddy Chris here, too, because Chris has known me for the years before I ever got sober. And anyways, I started drinking when I was about 12 years old, and I grew up in Canada, and I remember my buddy Darren. We only had 2 drinks, and we had one where he called it a suicide, and he put everything in it, and then we had a rum and coke, and I gotta tell you, I puked. I woke up, don't remember anything, and I was in a bathtub, and I woke up, and the first thing I did is I denied it, and I said to his mom, I said, I must have had a bad candy bar. You know? And we moved from Canada down to California, down to the Bay Area, and I was, well, I suck at reading. I've been told, many times to get the big book on tape and listen to it, and I've gone through most of the big book and to step 9, and I really balk at a lot of stuff. And anyways, I got sober December 9th, 1989. So 34 years ago today, I was checked into rehab in Reno, Nevada, and I had a girlfriend, and she was, she said that I wasn't, she couldn't introduce me to people. She couldn't take me around to anybody, and because I was too fucked up, and I was, I didn't really think about too much. I remember sometimes I see mental people walking around on the street, and I kind of think, I had a little bit of that. I was walking around, and I'd always talk to myself, and I'd always I just have to go have a big meeting with myself, and I'd have to really think about, what it was. And, Chris took me to Alaska and fished in Alaska, my first trip. And I remember one time going for the winter, and I had to leave my parents' house and go out to this woods and get loaded and just get ready to get fired up to get my mind together, and but anyways, I like the part in the big book where it says, it's physical, mental, and spiritual, and I also took drugs, and it was pointed out to me in the big book that, both Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob drank and took high-powered sedatives, and that's when they really hit bottom, was when they took that combination is what landed me on the rocks, and I wasn't a specialist. There's this one English guy that I used to listen to, and when I got sober, I used to listen to these tapes. This one guy, Mickey Bush, he was this guy from England, and he was just great. And he says, I was a kind of a chemical gourmet, and where Chris and I grew up, it was very common to take drugs and drink, there was many people that were big time drug dealers, and alcohol was prevalent everywhere, and we skied, and it was you know, you go to town and get drunk and drive home, and you know, put it in cruise control, and just all you had to do was steer, and you know, um, anyways, so that went on, and I always knew that I had this. Um, Once I did it, I couldn't stop. I couldn't control the amount when I was going to stop, when I was going to do. My solution to getting my act together was to consume alcohol and drugs to the point where that's the only thing I could do to get any willingness to want to stop, is just do as much as I could, and anyways, so I knew that about myself, you know, I knew that about myself. I just knew I'm wired this way, you know, that's what happens to me when I pick up or drink or anything. So I went to, um, I was on my way to a party with my girlfriend, and we were pulling up to Russell Paulson's house, and she was done with me basically, and she was being mean to me. She hurt my feelings, and I shook my beer up, and I had just flown not too long before that. I can't tell you when, to San Jose to pick up this brand new Saab 9000 turbo. And I get my beer and I shake it up and I sprayed it all in her car. And I said, "Fuck you, you're dumped." And I took off. And it was December in Tahoe. And I hitchhiked out of Squaw Valley to the main road. And Russell Paulson came up to me in his yellow Honda he had. And he says, "Come on back, man. Come on back." I said, "No, man, I'm out of here." And I took off. Then I hitchhiked back to my house, and I packed up everything I had and I stuck it into my storage unit. And the next morning, and then I proceeded to go to Donner Summit and to drink, and puked and kept drinking and smoking shitty weed. And I was on top of this around this place called School Rock, and I walked up there, and I'm not religious, but I said, "God help me," you know. And after I said that, a succession of things happened. It was just kind of unbelievable. I went to a phone booth, and I called up Blue Cross to get some medical insurance to try to go to rehab. And I said to him, I go, "I think I got a problem with drugs, and I got to get some help, and I need to go to rehab." And they said to me, no, they said, "Well, we can't give you any insurance because we think that's what's called a pre-existing condition." and and they said, and I had $5,000 left in a CD that Cat made me put into this CD, and and the guy says, and I just want to say, like in Alcoholics Anonymous, whenever I hear something 3 times, it's usually a good idea to do it, and I think that's one thing that makes recovery possible in these rooms is the feedback, the carrying the, I was at a meeting this morning over on Whidbey Island, and it was, it was on, there was a name for it, but it was like, caring about, you know, the input we get, and so that guy told me if it, if I had the cash, I would take the cash and I would go to a treatment center, right? So, and actually it was a lady that told me that, and she said if it was my kids or any one of my kids, I would pay the cash and I would go. So she told me what to do. She told me over the phone what to do, and so I called up the next phone number in the phone book, and it was Betty Ford. And I always say I didn't talk to Betty, but I called up Betty Ford, and I said, I think I got a problem and I need to get some help. And they said to me, well, we think you need to locate a place closer in your area. And so I went to the next phone number and I called a hospital down in Reno called St. Mary's, and they had a recovery program in Reno. And then I called them up and I said, I got a problem. And they said, well, why don't you come on in and get an assessment? So I always love getting loaded in the morning, because in the morning my body had kicked it out and I get the highest in the morning. So I like to get high and loaded right off the bat. And so I went, I left Donner Summit and I was driving down the canyon down to Reno, and a buddy of mine passed me on the highway going down to Reno, and I would have never seen him 5 minutes either way. He would have been either too far ahead of me or too far behind me. Danny got me. I was a skier, and he got me on Rosno skis when I was a kid, and he all of a sudden pulled over in one of the turnouts, and I went up to him and I chased him down. I was driving my Volkswagen Squareback, and I chased him down, and I got down there, and he goes, what's going on? I said, oh man, I just dumped my girlfriend. He goes, what caused that? I said, drinking and drugs. And he goes, what are you gonna do about your problem? I felt like saying, fuck you, man. I just got rid of my problem. But he goes, why don't you come with me over here? So I went to his cab of his truck, and he showed me his coin, and he had 13 months sober. And he goes, why don't I take you into St. Mary's? That's where I went, and I'll take you in. So he took me in. It was like Blue Cross told me to call Betty, look for a place. Betty Ford told me close to my area, and St. Mary's, and then Danny was there. And then I drove down the canyon, and all of a sudden I was checking this place out, and I was 26 years old, 60 years old now, So it took me a couple more days. That was my last real big drunk, was up there on the summit. And then my last beer was just uneventful. It was just a Coors Tall sitting in front of the 7-Eleven in a parking lot in Reno at UNR. And I was ready to go. And I just went back to my old girlfriend, and I told her I was going to rehab. And we called my parents and told them. And then uh, I ended up going to down to rehab. She took me in 34 years ago this morning, and dropped me off. And that was the end of that relationship, we have had very little contact ever since that time. And um, anyways, I just, you learn a lot in the first 90 days in recovery, and one friend of mine said, what you do is you learn the basics in the first 90 days, and you just keep repeating it over and over and over and over again. And what I like about your story is you talk about all the different meetings you got going and your service work, and that's what I did too. I went to 117 meetings in my first 90 days, and I got a service position, and I held on to that service position for almost 2 years, and that's what I did. And anyways, I went back to fishing. I've got the chance with my dad to go travel over to Africa, and we went on a couple safaris, and I've been to meetings in Africa, and went back to fishing and bought a motorcycle, took it to Hong Kong to resell it, and then I've decided to move to Seattle because Chris told me to move to Seattle. And Chris said, Johnny, why don't you come up here to Alki? It's a beautiful place. And so I did. So I lived with him and his fiance, Nikki, and then they kicked me out. And I was like, gonna go live in my car. And I got some help because I was sober from my dad. And I bought a house in West Seattle for $79,000, and it was a piece of shit, but I fixed it up. I have those ability tools and stuff to do that. So, but anyways, I met Steve at a West Seattle meeting, and I remember another one of my breakups with a girl that I was crazy about, and I was sitting at this speaker meeting in West Seattle, and Steve gets up there and he gets up to the podium and he shares, and it was like everything he was saying was magical. It was unbelievable, and I said, man, you got to go up to this guy and ask him for his phone number. So I went up there, and Steve and I have been friends ever since. And anyways, I don't know, I go to AA and I love AA, and my life might be pretty boring, and this is pretty much what I do. I work and I go to AA, and there's probably a whole mess of things that I could do, in addition, but without this, and especially the way fentanyl's out there, drugs are out there, everything, the cost of living and homelessness and all that stuff. Thank God I got to AA when I did. It is rough out there now, I think. And that guy Mickey Bush, he would say, who's the most important person in the meeting? He goes, it's not the newcomer. He says, it's me. He goes, anybody who doesn't say time doesn't mean shit, doesn't have time, and I'm grateful for my time, and I'm just really grateful that that I made it here. When I met Steve, we went to a book study in the bottom of a church, kind of just above the freeway and there was a book study. And what I liked about the way we studied out of the book was that when you're trying to figure out like how to work with somebody, you think we're going to go meet at Denny's, or where are we going to go meet? What are we going to do? But we met every week at that meeting for 1 hour before the meeting, when the meeting would start, and we just read as far as we could, and sometimes he would read, and and just work the program out of the book, and anyways, that then so we went all the way up there, and I remember he said to me, and he doesn't remember saying this, but I remember him saying it. He said, most people in Alcoholics Anonymous never get to the 4th step. And he goes, a lot of people, he says, don't quit now, because most people don't get to the 9th step, And I can tell you that as far as my parents, before they passed away, we're so grateful that I went to that treatment center and that I got sober. They knew something was wrong with their son. They just didn't know what, And my dad would always tell me how grateful he was that I got sober. He would always just say, he's just so grateful, And so I feel, in my own thinking, that I've done something towards that 9th step work, and I still have a lot of room to grow, and I have been in a lot of pain lately, and that guy Mickey Bush, he says relationship, RELATIONSHIP. Really exciting love affair turns into outrageous nightmare. Sobriety hangs in peril. And, I like this girl that I've been going out with, but it's really difficult for me to endure it. You know what I mean? And so, anyways, I don't think anything gets you into a state of growth or pain or whatever, like getting into a good relationship. And so I just, doing some reflecting right now. We ended up getting back together after we broke up for the 7th time or 8th time or something like that.
Wait, you got back together with her?
And so it's a pretty rough go. But anyways, if you need any Cliff Notes, Chris can tell you about it. But anyways, it's there's just I don't want to cause anybody any pain, especially somebody trying to be sober and being sober and doing a good job being sober. And it has been a real wonderful thing to watch her dive into meetings when we go through our rough spots, and participating in Alcoholics Anonymous as we go through these things and stuff. And anyways, there's still a big road ahead, and you know, hope one day to have a decent relationship, you know, because it fucking sure is fantastic when it's happening. And, yeah, that's about it, really. I just am grateful. I love this meeting, and I love the format of it. And I don't know what else to say. We got about 20 minutes left. Maybe Steve and Nancy can talk. But I'm really grateful to be here, and I'm really grateful to celebrate my birthday here. And thank you for everything. Okay.
Thanks, John.